You can't start off any list where you're talking about guys that have the potential to be the wide receiver one without talking about. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Football Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, paving your way to fantasy excellence, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy glory. We are going to go through, the Wolves' top 5 tiers of wide receivers. Wolf, how you doing? You ready to dive into this thing?
I can't wait to dive into the receivers. It's always a tough position to sort through, and I feel like I have a really good grasp of it this year. I love my tiers so far.
Tier 1, potential to be the wide receiver one. And you can't start off any list where you're talking about guys that have the potential to be the wide receiver one without talking about Justin Jefferson. It's pretty much impossible not to believe in this guy, right?
How could you not? So far in his young career, only 3 seasons, the wide receiver 6, wide receiver 4, and then wide receiver 1. He's been nothing but excellence. He does it all at every layer of the field. There's no faults in this guy's game at all, and he's just only seemingly getting better by the year. You look at what he did last year: first in targets, first in receptions, first in receiving yards, fourth in touchdowns, and of course, as you hinted at, wide receiver 1 in points last year. Wasn't the wide receiver 1 in points per game. We're going to get to that guy in a minute, but there's no holes in this guy's game. He should go number 1 overall in early best ball drafts, in PPR leagues, and even in half PPR. You can consider him with CMC right there at the top, even in your redraft leagues. There's nothing to argue. I absolutely love this guy. It's going to be tough to overtake him. But truth, these next 4, and I'll just kind of whip through them because we got 27 names to get through, so I want to make sure we cover them all. Let's talk about the argument for how someone might overtake a throne that is so difficult to, so well defended here in Justin Jefferson. Well, Jamar Chase, yeah, he's my number 2. He's definitely the best case. And I mean, look no further than college when the two were on the field together with Joe Burrow at quarterback. Chase outproduced Justin Jefferson. I know we're at the NFL level, and I know their situations are vastly different with Chase contending with T. Higgins, but man, this guy is so talented. And what I noticed about Jamar Chase, it was really clearly when he first came in as a rookie, a 1A, 1B situation. You know, in their games played together, him and T. Higgins, ultimately, T. Higgins had 136 targets in those games together, and Jamar Chase had 140. So they were neck and neck. We only saw Jamar Chase in his rookie year as a top 12 receiver in 5 of his 17 games. Now, some of those games were monsters, 55 points in your fantasy championship weeks. So the ceiling has always been very apparent with him, but the consistency was lacking. That did flip last year, and that's why I have some faith in Jamar Chase potentially overtaking Justin Jefferson, where he ended up finishing with 10-plus targets in 9 of his 12 games, 75% of the time. And that target share really became a wide receiver 1, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 2, Higgins. In their 9 games played together last year, Chase was on pace for 172 targets compared to 136 for Higgins. So we finally did see that divide. I don't think we've even come close to seeing the best, and that's yet to come with Jamar Chase. Over a full season, man, it could go absolutely bananas. So I love Jamar Chase entering this year as well. The best is yet to come. Definitely the best threat to the throne of Justin Jefferson, in my opinion. There's really only 2 other guys that I think have a legit claim. The next is Tyreek Hill, in my opinion. One thing I always love is record chasing, and he's already come out and said, I want that 2,000 yards before I retire. That's pretty scary considering he caught 119 balls for 1,710 yards. Both were franchise records. Top 3 wide receiver last year. Oh, baby. I love the idea of them just feeding this guy early, often. You saw how beautiful that system with Mike McDaniel, just getting these guys in space and letting their speed rip up and down the field. So if he's chasing records early on, we know how damn good Tyreek Hill is, how much of a game wrecker he is. He could absolutely overtake Jefferson as the wide receiver 1 this year.
Any questions we had about him were answered last year, because any of the this guy's Mahomes dependent, we'll see what happens when he goes somewhere when he doesn't have the best quarterback in the league throwing to him. Well, he did go somewhere,
right?
And he was incredible. And it also wasn't like he was like the target hog. There was another guy getting tons, getting peppered plenty, and Hill still ate a ton and just scored at will and put up huge yards. And so, yeah, I mean, there's certainly a world where this guy could end up wide receiver 1.
The last guy, and I think anybody out there could guess who that number 4 potential threat is. You could guess it. It's Cooper Kupp. It has to be as a potential threat for the number 1, considering in back-to-back years, he's been the number 1 guy in fantasy points per game. It's going to be the Cooper Kupp show. As long as he's out there, he's going to thrive. This is a great stat. In his past 2 years, 65% of his games have been top 10, and only 1 of those games has been outside the top 24. just the pinnacle of consistency each and every time he is out there. And the only risk seems to be injury. But you also look at his last 3 seasons before the last one. 48 of 49 games played through those 3 seasons. So I'm not overly worried about the injury concerns. Yeah, he's approaching 30, and there's that cliff that's kind of in the distance. I think that's far in the distance. And whether Matthew Stafford stays healthy or not, Cooper Kupp is QB proof, in my opinion. That role is just such a layup. You got to love the guy, right?
I do love him. And I mean, he, I don't know, arguably the best wide receiver season we've ever seen. I don't know. And I mean, he's the one guy, even maybe Jefferson I'd put in this category a little bit, but he's the one guy where it's just like everyone on the field knows they're going to him. They go to him and he still gets it. With Chase or something like that, it's like, yeah, they might go to Higgins. With Hill, it's like they might go to Waddle. With Kupp, it's like, all right, it's 3rd and 8. They're throwing the ball to Cooper Kupp, and he gets one for 10. It blows me away how many times I've seen that happen.
110%. Those are definitely the 4 guys that I think can contend for that number 1 overall spot.